No one in the Starry Sky Palace realized that the man who had just stepped into the teleportation formation was someone who could shake the entire cultivation world. If you enjoy my way of explaining and storytelling, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really motivates me to keep creating. He felt a vague sense of familiarity toward that formation flag. It seemed that he had once possessed a treasure very much like it in the distant past, though he had since given it away to someone else. Still, that was hardly a cause for concern. For a low-grade treasure of this kind, as long as one had mastered the method of refinement, reproducing an identical copy would be an effortless task. Even so, Han Li found his curiosity piqued by that woman at the core formation stage. Their group appeared to have vanished into thin air, yet such a crude concealment technique was utterly ineffective against Han Li's spiritual sense. A faint blue light flickered through his eyes, instantly piercing the layer of grey chi that shrouded the woman's face. That's... A peculiar expression surfaced on Han Li's face. At that very moment, two streaks of light, one azure, the other yellow, shot forth from the Starry Sky Palace. Some restrictions seemed to have been triggered, and the sound of hurried footsteps echoed from behind the palace doors. Soon after, a white-robed cultivator slowly emerged from within. He was a tall, thin man who appeared to be over 40 years of age. A slightly dark expression rested upon his face, and his cultivation was at the core formation stage. This man was clearly the Star Palace cultivator assigned to guard the palace. As he stepped outside, he cast his gaze around the surroundings, only to find that no one seemed to be present. Upon realizing this, his expression darkened further, a hint of displeasure creeping across his features. A flash of yellow light followed, and the core formation cultivator from earlier revealed himself of his own accord. The grey chi obscuring his face faded away, unveiling a pair of refined and graceful middle-aged features. Cupping his fist in salute, the man spoke respectfully. "Brother Zhang, has anything gone wrong? Will my wife and I still be able to teleport away tonight? As long as you have enough spirit stones, teleporting your group away is naturally a simple matter." The Star Palace cultivator replied. "Every guardian of the teleportation formation has done the same thing at some point. Are you worried that I would go back on my word and refuse you access?" Although his expression eased slightly after the man appeared, his tone remained cold and lacking in courtesy. "Of course not. I have absolute trust in you, Brother Zhang," the graceful man replied with a smile. "It's just that my daughter has truly fallen gravely ill. We must travel to the outer seas to obtain the demon core of the white yang demon fish to save her life. The situation is extremely urgent. We cannot afford any delays." As he spoke, he waved his hand toward a direction behind him. A faint sputtering sound rang out. A ball of yellow mist dispersed, revealing the remaining members of the group. The Foundation establishment cultivators had all revealed their faces. Only the female core formation cultivator and a frail chi condensation stage girl still had their faces concealed. Beneath grey chi, "This must be your wife. I have heard much about you, Moon Maiden." The Star Palace cultivator paid no attention to the other Foundation establishment cultivators. His gaze was fixed upon the female core formation cultivator. His eyes swept across her face several times, and he even offered her a rare smile. "Thank you for assisting us, fellow Taoist Zhang. I will forever remain grateful," the female cultivator said gently. Her voice was soft and delicate, yet her tone carried neither arrogance nor civility. "It's a pity that Moon Maiden refuses to reveal her face here. I must admit, I am somewhat disappointed. Come with me." The Star Palace cultivator chuckled, a faint trace of wistfulness flickering across his expression. However, he quickly turned around and strode back into the palace. The graceful man exchanged a glance with the female core formation cultivator before following him inside. The frail chi condensation stage girl was kept between them as they walked. The 4 Foundation establishment cultivators were clearly their disciples, and they hurried after their masters without delay. Naturally, none of them noticed the brief flash of azure light outside the palace. At the very instant before the restriction was reactivated, a faint figure slipped inside alongside them, completely undetectable to their cultivation levels. The figure moved soundlessly and stealthily, like nothing more than a drifting wisp of smoke. After passing through a winding network of corridors, the group arrived in a hall filled with numerous teleportation formations. Waiting inside was an elderly man whose face was as tender and smooth as that of an infant. The moment the group entered, a cold gleam flashed briefly through the old man's eyes before vanishing without a trace. "That's everyone correct. 7 people, just the right number for a single batch," the elderly man remarked indifferently. "Indeed, these are the fellow Taoists wishing to teleport this time," the Star Palace cultivator replied before turning to the graceful man behind him. "Fellow Taoist Tian, which island do you intend to travel to?" "We'll head to Silver Shark Island," the man answered after a brief moment of hesitation. His gaze swept across the row of teleportation formations before settling on one of them. Recently, a high-grade mine was discovered there. Most cultivators in the outer seas have already gathered on that island. Perhaps we'll be fortunate enough to find the demon core of a white yang demon fish there. Brother Huang, deactivate the restriction on that formation, the Star Palace cultivator said expressionlessly. "Fellow Taoist Tian, it's time for you to pay." Of course. Once the elderly man performed several celestial techniques to withdraw the white light barrier surrounding the formation, the graceful man's heart surged with excitement. Without hesitation, he removed a storage pouch from his waist and tossed it to the Star Palace cultivator. The latter caught it and scanned its contents with his spiritual sense. A satisfied expression appeared on his face. "The amount is correct. Here, these are your teleportation talismans." After confirming the spirit stones inside, he wasted no time in producing 7 talismans. The graceful man accepted them and distributed one to each member of his group. Guided by the Star Palace cultivator, they approached the teleportation formation his gaze had previously rested upon. The formation shimmered faintly with white light. Everything seemed perfectly normal. "You certainly have some nerve. How dare you secretly teleport people to the outer seas behind my back? Are you not afraid that the enforcement hall will punish you with lightning whip torture?" Suddenly, an alluring female voice echoed through the hall. The voice itself was not loud, yet it struck the hearts of everyone present like a thunderclap. The faces of the Star Palace cultivator and the elderly man instantly turned deathly pale. The graceful man and the female core formation cultivator were momentarily stunned before spinning around abruptly. Spiritual light erupted from their bodies, enveloping the frail chi condensation stage girl in a cocoon of light. In the next instant, the two of them transformed into streaks of light, one red, one blue, shooting directly toward the teleportation formation. A cold snort rang out. From one corner of the hall, a brilliant streak of light shot through the air, appearing before the formation in the blink of an eye. Spiritual light surged forth effortlessly, swatting aside the red and blue streaks. The 2 streaks were hurled backward for 70 to 80 feet before dissipating, revealing the disheveled figures of the graceful man and the female core formation cultivator. Both of them had turned deathly pale. They opened their mouths, simultaneously coughing up mouthfuls of blood essence. In contrast, the chi condensation stage girl they had tried so desperately to protect remained completely unharmed. At that moment, the grey chi concealing the faces of the 2 women dispersed at the same time, revealing their true appearances. The female core formation cultivator appeared to be around 25 or 26 years old. Her skin was as fair and smooth as warm jade, and her beauty was truly exquisite. The chi condensation stage girl beside her seemed only 15 or 16. Her complexion was sickly yellow, and her body extremely frail. Yet upon closer inspection, one would notice that her features bore a striking resemblance to those of the core formation woman. Her eyes were clear as still water, and even in such dire circumstances, little panic could be seen on her face. "We pay our respects to the palace master." The 2 Star Palace cultivators were utterly terrified upon seeing the streak of light and immediately dropped to their knees. The 2 core formation cultivators exchanged a glance upon hearing this, each seeing their own shock reflected in the other's eyes. They had originally harbored a sliver of hope that they might escape from this woman, but now that hope had been completely shattered. They stood frozen in place, unable to summon even the courage to flee. At that moment, light flickered in the corner of the hall. A slender and graceful figure emerged, drifting slowly toward the center. It was a woman dressed in white robes with a white veil covering half of her face. Her eyes shone like bright stars, and her brows were long and delicate. She was clearly another breathtaking beauty, yet she did not spare the gathered cultivators a single glance. Instead, her gaze shifted toward the entrance of the hall. "Fellow Taoist," "Han," she said calmly, "why are you sneaking around among these juniors? Would you kindly reveal yourself and have a conversation with me?" Her words sent waves of shock crashing through the hearts of everyone present. All of them turned in the direction she was facing. But in their eyes there was nothing there, only empty space. How could anyone possibly be hiding there? Just as suspicion and confusion filled the hall, a gentle chuckle suddenly sounded from that very spot. "I didn't expect to encounter one of the heavenly star sages here," the voice said calmly. "You didn't come here solely to meet me, did you?" The moment the voice faded, azure light flickered. An azure-robed cultivator appeared out of thin air. With his hands clasped behind his back, he gazed at the woman before him with a faint smile. This man was none other than Han Li. The woman swept her spiritual sense across his body. In the next instant, her expression changed drastically. Disbelief surged through her bright eyes. Late nascent soul stage. This woman was naturally the same one who had appeared in the cave of the sacred mountain. Everyone else in the hall was completely stunned by those words. Even though half of them were core formation cultivators, encountering a nascent soul cultivator was already an exceedingly rare event. Encountering a late nascent soul cultivator was something that almost never happened. Yet today, not only had one of the heavenly star sages appeared before them, another unknown late nascent soul cultivator had also revealed himself. For a moment, everyone felt as though they were trapped within a dream. Among them, the core formation woman, known as Moon Maiden, was even more stunned than the others upon seeing Han Li. Her mouth fell open in shock. When she heard that Han Li had already advanced to the late nascent soul stage, she stood completely frozen in astonishment. Under normal circumstances, such a reaction would have drawn attention from those around her. But at this moment, every cultivator present was utterly focused on the two late nascent soul cultivators. No one had the mental capacity to notice her reaction. Strangely enough, the young Qi condensation girl was the first and only person to notice it. Because her cultivation base was so low, the core formation and nascent soul realms were simply too distant for her to fully comprehend. After observing the core formation woman's reaction, she couldn't help but glance curiously toward Han Li. "Are you really Han Li?" The heavenly star sage's calm composure had completely vanished, replaced by a deeply solemn expression. "Do you think you've been waiting for the wrong person all this time?" Han Li did not answer directly. Instead, a faint smile curved across his lips as he looked at the woman before him. The masked woman met Han Li's gaze without the slightest hint of weakness, yet waves of shock churned deep within her heart. She had initially believed Han Li would be easy prey, someone she could capture with little effort. Only now did she realize that he was far more formidable than she had anticipated. The realization planted a seed of hesitation in her mind. With the assistance of the divine essence-fused light and the divine essence-fused mountain, she was confident that if a battle were to break out, she would have at least a 70% chance of victory. However, defeating Han Li was one thing. Killing or capturing him was another matter entirely. If she attempted such a thing, there was a very real possibility that Han Li would escape. Should that happen, the Star Palace would gain a late nascent soul cultivator as an enemy. Even as one of the heavenly star sages, she did not dare to act recklessly under such circumstances. Thus both Han Li and the masked woman fell silent. A suffocating stillness spread through the palace hall, the oppressive atmosphere pressing down on everyone present, as though the air itself had grown heavy enough to choke them. Suddenly Han Li's expression darkened. He raised one hand and made a casual grabbing motion through the air. In the next instant, spiritual light flashed brilliantly as a gigantic azure hand manifested out of nowhere. It shot forward like lightning, snatching a streak of fiery light out of the empty air before clamping down tightly upon it. The masked woman's brows lifted slightly at the sight, a flicker of surprise passing through her eyes. "I would advise you not to send out voice transmission talismans, fellow Taoist," Han Li said coldly. "I have no desire to be attacked by two cultivators of the same cultivation level at once. As far as I know, I have never offended the Star Palace. Why then do you harbor such hostility toward me?" As he spoke, a layer of azure flames ignited along the giant hand. The streak of fiery light was instantly reduced to nothingness. "There seems to be a misunderstanding, fellow Taoist Han," the masked woman replied after a brief pause, a smile suddenly appearing upon her face. "I have no intention of harming you. I merely wish to express my gratitude for saving my daughter all those years ago." With those words, the oppressive tension in the palace abruptly dissipated. "Your daughter? Could it be that fellow Taoist Ling is—" Han Li paused slightly before a look of realization dawned upon his face. His expression softened. Of course, he knew perfectly well that the woman's true intentions were unlikely to be as simple as expressing gratitude. Still, he chose to play along and allow the matter to settle peacefully. Han Li did not fear a battle with a late nascent soul cultivator. After all, he had slain cultivators of that level before, and now that he had reached the same stage himself, his strength was far greater than it had been in the past. Even so, he had no interest in making enemies wherever he went. Furthermore, he was currently within Heavenly Star City. The presence of the divine essence-fused light naturally made him cautious. "It seems you have already guessed correctly. Yuling is indeed our only daughter," the masked woman said warmly. "If not for your help back then, she would most likely have perished. My Tao companion and I have always been deeply grateful to you." "No wonder fellow Taoist Ling possesses such exceptional aptitude," Han Li replied with a faint smile. "To think that she is the daughter of the Heavenly Star sages." "You flatter us, Brother Han," the masked woman said with a chuckle, shaking her head lightly. "In terms of cultivation talent, no one could compare with you. To advance from the core formation stage to the late nascent soul stage in less than 200 years, such a feat is simply unheard of. In the entire history of the human world, no one has cultivated at such an astonishing pace. Yuling is far from your equal." Though her tone was light, the question hidden within her praise was unmistakable. Han Li naturally understood the probing intent behind her words, but he merely responded with a vague smile and offered no further explanation. "I have heard much about the two Heavenly Star sages and would be delighted to converse with you at length," Han Li said calmly. "However, I still have urgent matters to attend to. I'm afraid I cannot remain here any longer. I would like to use the Star Palace's teleportation formation. Would that be acceptable?" As he spoke, his gaze briefly fell upon the teleportation formation before returning to the masked woman. "Of course," she replied without hesitation. She retrieved a gleaming golden badge from her storage pouch and tossed it toward him. "This is a guest elder badge. You may take it if you wish. I understand that someone of your status would have no interest in formally joining the Star Palace. Consider this merely something my Tao companion and I are lending you. With this badge, you will be able to summon and utilize all of the Star Palace's resources in the outer seas. Please accept it as a token of our gratitude." Han Li was slightly surprised. Instinctively, he caught the golden badge. After giving it a brief inspection, he said, "Thank you for your generosity." Following a moment of hesitation, he placed it into his storage pouch. A faint glimmer of satisfaction passed through the masked woman's eyes when she saw him accept it. Taking advantage of the moment, she continued, "When you return from the outer seas, my Tao companion and I would like to formally invite you to visit our cultivation abode. Perhaps we could discuss our experiences on the path toward the deity transformation stage. Would you be interested?" The deity transformation stage. Han Li contemplated for a moment before shaking his head apologetically. "I have only just advanced to the late nascent soul stage. While I would indeed welcome the opportunity to exchange insights with fellow cultivators of the same level, my immediate priority is to stabilize my cultivation base. If the opportunity arises in the future, however, I will certainly pay you and your Dao companion a visit. Late nascent soul cultivators were exceedingly rare in the human world. Opportunities to converse with such individuals were equally rare. But Han Li had no intention of placing himself in a potentially dangerous situation for the sake of such an opportunity. With his current power, he was confident he could face several late nascent soul cultivators at once and still escape unharmed. Yet that did not mean nothing in the human world could threaten him. If he were careless, he might be trapped within some ancient restriction or powerful large-scale formation. Under such circumstances, an ambush by late nascent soul cultivators could prove disastrous. Thus, he politely declined the invitation. A hint of disappointment flickered across the masked woman's face. Even she herself was uncertain whether the invitation she had extended truly carried ulterior motives. Since Han Li had refused, however, she naturally did not press the matter. Instead, she casually shifted the conversation to other topics and continued chatting amicably with him. After exchanging a few polite words, Han Li took his leave. The masked woman made no attempt to stop him. Instead, she stepped aside and allowed him access to the teleportation formation. At the same time, she drifted even farther away, clearly signaling that she would not interfere with his departure. A faint smile appeared on Han Li's face. He paid no further attention and walked forward. The two Star Palace cultivators hurriedly stepped aside as well, bowing respectfully and clearing a path toward the formation. In doing so, however, the core formation couple and their disciples came into view. The graceful man dared not speak. He quickly attempted to pull his daughter aside so they would not obstruct Han Li's path. But to his astonishment, the woman he had been happily married to for over a century suddenly stepped forward and bowed respectfully before Han Li. When Siyue pays her respects to Senior Han, congratulations on advancing to the late nascent soul stage senior. If not for your help all those years ago, I would not be standing here today. This core formation cultivator was none other than Wen Siyue, the woman who had nearly become Han Li's servant in the Outer Star Seas. Siyue, you recognize the senior? The graceful man stammered in disbelief. Han Li turned to her calmly. Long time no see. I see you've also reached the core formation stage. It seems you haven't been slacking in your cultivation. Otherwise, with your aptitude, it would have been somewhat difficult for you to reach this stage. It's all thanks to the pills you left for me, Senior Wen Siyue replied respectfully. Without them, I could never have advanced to the core formation stage. Your father and I are old acquaintances. Helping you was only natural. You need not thank me, Han Li replied indifferently. You seem to be in a hurry to reach the outer seas as well. Come along with me. He then turned to the masked woman. This woman is an acquaintance of mine. You wouldn't mind if I took them along to the outer seas, would you? Of course not, she replied immediately. Feel free. You have my thanks. Han Li nodded slightly and said nothing more. Taking a single step forward, he appeared inside the teleportation formation. He had clearly used the distance minimization technique, a divine ability only late nascent soul cultivators could wield. Wen Siyue and the others were startled. When they looked at Han Li again, their eyes were filled with awe and reverence. Only the frail young girl stared at him with pure curiosity shining in her eyes. Han Li cast a celestial technique toward the edge of the formation before retrieving his greater teleportation, medallion. As the teleportation formation began to glow with white light, he turned to the masked woman with a faint smile. By the way, it seems I have yet to learn your name. Would you be so kind as to tell me? My name is Wen Qing, the masked woman replied, slightly surprised but still smiling. At that very instant, Han Li and the others vanished within the white light. Whether he had actually heard her response remained unknown. The smile on Wen Qing's face vanished immediately. Her voice turned icy cold. For granting them unauthorized access to the teleportation formation, each of you will receive 20 lightning whip lashes as punishment. Should you dare repeat such behavior, I will not be so lenient. Thank you for sparing our lives, Palace Master. We will never do such a thing again. The two terrified Star Palace cultivators were both horrified and relieved. The punishment was far lighter than they had feared, but 20 lightning whip lashes would still leave them bedridden for at least a month. After delivering her verdict, light flashed around Wen Qing's body. In the next instant, she vanished without a trace. After the masked woman departed from the Starry Sky Palace, the two Star Palace cultivators finally let out a long breath of relief. The younger of the two glanced toward Wen Siyue and her companions, and a flash of anger flickered across his eyes. If it weren't for these people, they would never have been caught red-handed and sentenced to endure the torment of the lightning whips. The Star Palace cultivator stiffened his expression and was just about to unleash a stream of insults to vent his frustration. However, before he could speak, the elderly man suddenly turned toward Wen Siyue with a respectful look and said, "You are truly fortunate to have made the acquaintance of Senior Han. Opportunities like this are exceedingly rare. With Senior Han's guidance, advancing to the nascent soul stage in the future will be far easier for you." The cold attitude the old man had previously shown toward Wen Siyue and the others had completely vanished. The other Star Palace cultivator was initially taken aback by this sudden change in demeanor. But after hearing the old man's words, realization quickly dawned on him. He immediately swallowed the insults that were about to leave his mouth and forced a bright smile onto his face. In his earlier anger, he had completely forgotten one crucial detail: these people were connected to a late nascent soul cultivator. They were not individuals that insignificant core formation cultivators like them could afford to offend. "Indeed, Brother Huang is absolutely right," he said hurriedly. "Perhaps we will have to rely on you two fellow Taoists for assistance in the future. Here, these are your spirit stones. We'll cover the cost of your teleportation this time." The Star Palace cultivator removed the storage pouch filled with spirit stones from his waist and respectfully offered it to the core formation couple. Although his heart ached at the loss, he still forced himself to maintain a warm and enthusiastic expression. The graceful man glanced at the pouch and hesitated slightly. However, Wen Siyue smiled gently and declined. "My Dao companion and I are already extremely grateful that the two of you are willing to teleport us to the outer seas. How could we possibly take the spirit stones back? Please accept them as a token of repayment for your kindness. I am in a hurry to catch up with Senior Han, so I hope you can activate the formation as soon as possible." Of course. I'll replace the spirit stones immediately, and you can depart right away." Seeing that Wen Siyue truly had no intention of taking the stones back, the Star Palace cultivator could only tuck the pouch away again somewhat awkwardly. His figure flashed forward to the teleportation formation, where he bent down and began replacing the spirit stones that had just been used. Meanwhile, the elderly man continued chatting with Wen Siyue and her Dao companion, attempting to indirectly gather more information about Han Li. Unfortunately for him, the graceful man knew absolutely nothing. As for Wen Siyue, she merely smiled politely and responded with vague, ambiguous answers, clearly unwilling to reveal anything. Not long afterward, the spirit stones within the teleportation formation had been replaced. Wen Siyue truly was anxious to catch up with Han Li, so she politely declined the Star Palace cultivator's further attempts at conversation. She affixed the teleportation talisman to her body and led the others into the formation. A burst of white light flashed. The 7 of them disappeared. The 2 Star Palace cultivators glanced at one another and let out simultaneous sighs before helpless smiles appeared on their faces. On the other end of the teleportation formation, within a stone chamber roughly 100 feet wide, Wen Siyue and her group reappeared in a burst of white light. Moments later, the dizziness brought on by teleportation gradually faded. Wen Siyue immediately looked around. Her heart sank. The chamber was completely empty. Han Li was nowhere to be seen. "Wait here for me. I'm going to see if Senior Han is still nearby," she said hurriedly before rushing toward the stone door without even waiting for her Dao companion's reply. The graceful man opened his mouth as if to say something, but after a moment's hesitation, he swallowed his words. However, his brows remained faintly furrowed as he watched Wen Siyue's departing figure. The moment Wen Xiue stepped out of the stone chamber, her eyes lit up. The chamber was situated upon a vast stone platform that crowned the peak of a towering mountain. The platform itself was surrounded by sheer cliffs that no ordinary mortal could ever climb. But what truly filled her with joy was the sight of Han Li standing quietly in one corner of the platform. He was conversing with a cultivator dressed in Star Palace robes. Han Li stood with his hands clasped behind his back, speaking leisurely. In contrast, the burly mid-core formation cultivator standing before him appeared as meek as a lamb. He nodded repeatedly and bowed again and again, answering Han Li's questions with a mixture of fear and respect. Clearly, this man was the Star Palace cultivator responsible for guarding the teleportation formation on this side. Wen Xiue took a moment to compose herself. However, she did not approach immediately. Instead, she waited quietly while Han Li finished speaking with the guard. After some time, Han Li waved his hand lightly, apparently having asked all the questions he wished. The burly cultivator bowed deeply before departing toward the stone chamber. Only then did Wen Xiue step forward. "Thank you for your assistance earlier, Senior Han," she said respectfully as she bowed. "If it weren't for you, not only would we have failed to reach the outer seas, we might even have fallen into grave danger." Han Li looked at her calmly. "Think nothing of it. You were only discovered because of me, so helping you was only natural. However, your journey here seems rather urgent. Is there something important you must attend to? You have already helped me greatly, and I should be satisfied with that," Wen Xiue said, tears beginning to well in her eyes. "But please forgive my greed. My daughter is gravely ill and could die at any moment. I beg you to help us again, Senior." Her tears flowed freely as she spoke. It was obvious how deeply she feared for her daughter's life. "That poisoned girl is your daughter." A faint flash of light appeared in Han Li's eyes, though his expression remained calm. "She is," Wen Xiue exclaimed, hope lighting her face. "Senior Han truly possesses extraordinary perception to have identified the cause of my daughter's illness." "I overheard part of your conversation earlier," Han Li replied. "Haven't you already found a way to treat the poison? Why come to me? Indeed, my Dao companion and I once received guidance from a great expert. We were told that the demon core of the white yang demon fish could be refined into a pill capable of curing this poison." She paused briefly before continuing. "However, that pill cannot eradicate the poison completely. It may save her life temporarily, but her body would be ruined, and her cultivation path would be effectively destroyed." Her voice trembled. "You are a late nascent soul grand cultivator, Senior. Surely you possess a better solution. Please help us." "I see." Han Li did not answer immediately. Instead, he fell silent, a contemplative look appearing on his face. Wen Xiue felt her heart tighten with anxiety, yet she dared not rush him. She could only look up at him with pleading eyes. Han Li lifted his gaze toward the brilliant sun hanging high in the sky. Then his eyes drifted back down to Wen Xiue's beautiful yet tear-streaked face. To her surprise, he suddenly asked, "When did Brother Wen pass away?" Wen Xiue was startled by the question. A moment later, however, sorrow clouded her expression. "When I returned to the inner seas all those years ago, Father had already disappeared. I searched for decades but found no trace of him. Unless Father somehow reached the core formation stage, he has most likely already left this world." "The path of cultivation is fraught with danger," Han Li said slowly. "No one knows how far they will ultimately walk along it." He paused before continuing. "If you were a complete stranger asking for my help, I would most likely ignore the request. However, we have crossed paths more than once. It seems that we share a certain affinity." He nodded slightly. "Since you are the daughter of an old acquaintance of mine, and I still have some time to spare, I will take a look at your daughter." "Thank you for your kindness, Senior." Wen Xiue was overjoyed. She immediately attempted to kneel in gratitude. However, Han Li casually flicked his sleeve. An invisible force gently lifted her, preventing her from kneeling. "This is not a suitable place for treatment," he said calmly. "I will wait for you at the inn in the small town at the foot of the mountain. Come find me when you and your companions are ready." An azure light flashed around his body. In the next instant, he transformed into a streak of azure light and shot down the mountain. Wen Xiue stood frozen for a moment before rushing back toward the stone chamber, her face radiant with joy. Moments later, all 7 of them hurried down the mountain in the direction Han Li had departed. That Han brat has already advanced to the late nascent soul stage. Countless kilometers away, in the cave atop the sacred mountain of Heavenly Star City, a male voice filled with disbelief echoed through the chamber, causing the entire cavern to tremble slightly. The speaker was none other than one of the Heavenly Star sages. He has a calm female voice replied. Wenqing had already removed the scarf covering her face, revealing beautiful yet slightly pale features. She sat upon a translucent jade platform that glimmered faintly within the cave. I was also unwilling to believe it at first, but I verified his cultivation base several times with my spiritual sense. There is no mistake. That means his cultivation talent surpasses both yours and mine, the man said after recovering from his initial shock. That seems to be the case, Wenqing replied softly. As far as I know, he had not yet reached 200 years of age when he disappeared. His cultivation speed surpasses every master the Star Palace has ever produced. You and I barely managed to reach the late nascent soul stage at around 500 years of age. She let out a faint sigh. For so long she had believed herself to be a rare cultivation prodigy. Only now did she realize she had been nothing more than a frog at the bottom of a well. The contrast filled her with an indescribable sense of loss. If that is the case, the man said thoughtfully, then even if he has only recently advanced to the late nascent soul stage, with the heaven-void cauldron in his possession, he should already be capable of matching either one of us in battle. No wonder you chose to let him go. He paused. What was your first impression after speaking with him? My first impression? Wenqing frowned slightly, her brows knitting together. He is extremely cautious, yet bold. She paused. No, not bold. Instead, he is... She suddenly fell silent, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. Difficult to describe, the man asked. After a brief hesitation, Wenqing shook her head. Number. It's not that. She looked thoughtful. It's just that, when I think back on it now, I've realized something rather suspicious. Suspicious? Yes. She spoke slowly. He clearly knew that I was one of the Heavenly Star sages and that he was inside Heavenly Star City. Yet he showed absolutely no fear or concern. Even with the heaven-void cauldron, he should not have been that confident. She paused, and when I faced him, I felt something. Her eyes darkened slightly, an indescribable sense of fear, as if he were an extremely terrifying person. She exhaled slowly. I haven't experienced such a feeling in a very long time. You cultivated the spirit premonition art, the man said gravely. Your instincts are rarely wrong. His voice grew heavy. That means there must truly be something frightening about him.